Hey, Kevin.
Hello.
Hey, Joe.
Hey, good evening, gentlemen.
Joe.
How are we doing tonight?
Well, you?
I almost closed my eyes for about 10 minutes. It was a bonus. Not quite, but you know.
That's dangerous to do that. Yeah.
I was afraid. I did set the alarm.
That is dangerous.
So true. My sister is having her kitchen redone, so there was plenty of banter going on that was, making sure
Okay, so I'd like to call the Board of Education regular meeting to order on Thursday, May 13th, and welcome everyone. Is there a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Second? Thanks, Ruth. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Lucille, are there any comments from the public?
No, there are not.
Okay. There is no consent agenda either.
Yep.
All right, so we're right into reports and recognition. Mine is very short. Thanks to everyone who was able to attend the town meeting last Saturday or who attended remotely. And the final plug here is to please everyone remember to vote Saturday at the Clune Center from 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. And also very, very briefly, I had the opportunity to attend a Wilton Youth Council meeting and a SEPTA PTA meeting remotely. And I don't need to go into the content of those meetings, but I was just struck by what amazing groups both of those organizations are and how energetic and knowledgeable and focused and mission driven, and how lucky we are in Wilton to be able to collaborate and partner with such people. So thanks for their efforts. Superintendent's report.
Great. Just two items briefly. First, we want to congratulate our high school senior Connor Allen, who was named 2021 National Merit Scholar winner. So congratulations, Connor.
Congratulations.
Great. I also wanted to call everyone's attention to our high school theater program. They'll be performing the spring musical, Working the Musical, beginning May 19th. That musical will run on the 19th, 20th, 22nd, and 23rd. And in a change, it'll take place outdoors on the North Field, which is here adjacent to Lilly. Tickets can be purchased online at www.wiltonhighschooltheater.com. And I am told attendees should bring blankets or low chairs because we're not providing seating. So I'm sure, like all of our other musical productions, it's going to be absolutely amazing. And we would encourage all of you and everybody else who is at home or might be listening to pick up some tickets and come out and join us for a great night of theater. And I'm all set. That's all I have for you.
Okay. And that sounds so wonderful to have an outdoor presentation. So thanks to the high school and all the creative, artistic, talented kids for just coming up with such a wonderful solution in this era. It'll be something I'm sure no one will ever forget. Committee reports. I'm not sure which committees met.
No.
Not you, Glenn.
Yep. Opposite, not me.
Policy met.
And?
So we reviewed and discussed our current policies regarding age of attendance and student dress. And we finalized our review of the policies regarding gifts, grants, and bequests, and fundraising, and equal opportunity in school programs and practices. And our final revisions on those are before the board tonight for initial discussion.
Okay, thank you. Teaching and learning?
Yeah, we met. Kim Zemo came and gave us an update on social emotional learning within the district. She talked about how toolkits were put together for each building regarding social emotional learning resources. And then we talked about kind of what are some of the goals for moving forward. And they talked about refining the universal screening procedure, teacher evaluations, support plan, cultural competence, rolling out social emotional learning standards to staff, working on developing tier 2 and 3 protocols and next steps, continuing to collaborate with Wilton Youth Council. And then we had a discussion around bullying and what is considered bullying. And I guess there are 3 levels. First, it's conflict, threshold barriers, and then actual bullying. And we talked about what constitutes actual bullying versus other behaviors, and what protocols are in place across the district to help support teachers and families.
Okay, thank you. That's a lot to cover. All right, that's our board committees. Financial update.
Yep, Anne can give us an update.
I'll give
Okay.
you an update, and it's like the weather at the moment, unfortunately, between FEMA, the state, though I'm not complaining in regards to possible money we're getting, but every week it's different on, we have a forecast and then it changes because we think we're getting more money. So I've been hesitant in formalizing it, but what I want to say though is because of our freeze and because of the things that the whole district has done as a group, we will definitely cover our expenditures for COVID-related expenses to date. In this year so far, between the salaries that we were new positions and expenditures, we had to cover about $800,000. And it sounds low because of the fact that we did encumber some of it last year. If you remember the end of last year's budget cycle, we encumbered to protect ourselves against this year. And now we're able to do that with the savings, which, as you can imagine, athletics from the fall, different contracts because we didn't move ahead, training and conferences. We budgeted that we were going to have 7 custodians. We ended up having 6. We unfortunately haven't still an opening. We had an opening in the custodians on our regular custodians. So we had various savings that in going through all the line items, we will cover it. What is unknown at this point is what is FEMA going to give us, which we're still waiting on that. We were again in contact with them today. And we do know what we're getting in regards to the ARP funds, and that's designated for certain different areas, the catch-up, summer school, and some construction. So right now, I am planning that we are going to come in on budget. We did get our excess cost money. We got the second tranche last week. It came in on where we were estimating, because obviously that number moves a lot and we don't get 100%. We get about between 70, 75%. Of that number. So right now I feel very confident that we're going to come in on budget with everything that the whole district has done to make this happen.
Well, you can't ask for better news than that. So thank you. And thanks for keeping such great track of it. And I know there's a lot of moving parts with all the reimbursement, looking backwards, but also looking forwards and trying to figure out what we qualify for when. So thank you.
Yep. Thank you.
Okay, that brings us to our review and discussion items. And the first one is survey feedback. And I know we have some guests and we are looking forward to this presentation.
Terrific. So we're going to turn it over to Fran. Just going to take a few minutes and review with you the district thought exchange survey data. And then we're going to just put a few questions in front of our student panelists. And so students, I want to say thank you at the outset for joining us, and we're looking forward to hearing some of your wisdom about this school year. And not only are we, processing and reflecting on this year, but we're also thinking, very deeply about next year. And so we'll have some questions about what worked well, what we'd like to improve, and then what were some of the silver linings and things we'd like to see as we're planning for the next school year. So on that, we'll come back around to it in just a minute. But Fran, why don't you go ahead and take us away?
Okay. Okay, so this presentation is based on a thought exchange survey that we did in the last 2 to 3 weeks, which were basically our reflections on the year and preparation for next year. The question that was asked was what's worked well this year, what could be improved, and what are some of the silver linings that could be carried over into next year. Just to give you a little bit of background, Thought Exchange is a survey tool we've now been using for a couple of years. It is based on artificial intelligence that really determines trends, themes, and important feedback if you pose an open-ended question like we did. And so with that, I just wanted to review the last results of this. So going out to our families, students, and our staff members, we had 1,758 participants that wrote 2,700 or a little bit over 2,700 thoughts. And then those thoughts were rated over 54,000 times, which is really quite impressive. So we had active participation. Our learning model breakdown of participation, we obviously were predominantly in person, so that was 73% of the respondents. 8% though were remote learners. And then you see an in-person / remote learning because that was our staff members who are doing still both. Then in terms of success and how people felt that participated, how successful their experience was this year, you see that if you take the very successful, and somewhat successful, it comes up to about 91%. And you have a small percentage saying that it was not successful, 4%. Our school breakdown looks a little bit, skewed only because we had a lot of student participation at Cider Mill and Middlebrook, but the rest really, we had staff members and parents from all the schools participate. This is just a word cloud. It basically takes all those thousands of thoughts and, puts them in, and you see some of those words that come up the most bigger in the word cloud. So basically, the results really aren't surprising in any way. They were an affirmation of a lot of things that we've seen and we thought. And the key thoughts that come up are normally the things that, like I said before, they are mentioned many times, and some of the keywords through an algorithm pop up. So you see what's ranked first, out of 5 stars. 4.5 is that first one, which is, we'll talk a little bit more about this, but liking half days on Wednesdays coming up from students. And actually this was something that came up from students, staff, and some parents. Very popular was having parent conferences, PPT meetings, 504 meetings, and all kinds of meetings, by the way, on Zoom for the convenience, the fact that it saved time and that it really was something that everybody liked. There were a lot of celebrations, coworkers really, collaboration, and a lot of recognition of what was done this year. Which was very difficult, and people did come through and they rallied. And some of the other things that came up, the idea of the bad weather remote days, having remote half school days on snow days worked well because it kept continuity of learning and did not extend the school year. With, the end of school year coming up, I'm sure people had this in their mind and were grateful for it. So these are the big themes that came up. Operations in general, how things were, operated in the school building, how desks were set up, the sneeze guards, lunch, recess, pickup lines, all of those things came up under operations. And that was something that came up over and over. Again, celebrations was very popular. Like I said, online meetings was something that people really, really liked. Remote learning, although there was a little bit of positive, but a lot of, let's go back to in-person learning that came up. Some comments about special areas. And as you know, with whether it was PE or music, we had to change quite a bit in our special areas. And so that was alluded to in terms of, really wanting to go back to having real gym classes and, music classes and those types of things. SEL came up as a priority, and like I said, Wednesdays and in-person learning. So then some specifics of things that in those theme areas came up high, like I said, in operations. So just, to synthesize some of it, students want their lockers back. Backpacks are heavy, and they'd really like to have that back. If we have mask breaks next year, they'd really like to continue having the mask breaks, and the full 10 minutes is really important to them. Pickup lines came up not only for students, but for parents, as you can imagine, and trying to improve that is something that came up. Students want to return to their regular desks. They don't like the small desks and the sneeze guards. The one-arm desks are hard. So, just a kind of like a theme of we'd really like to return to what was normal, the old desk, get rid of the sneeze guards, things like that. Then going into celebrations, there were lots of these. And I think that that's what's really important. This came up really high, increased communication at all levels, from the district to the school to teachers with students. That was recognized as something that happened and was frequent. Teachers did an outstanding job of switching from a whole way in teaching and maintaining a degree of normalcy within that. The fact that teachers were available for help, and students tried their best, and so did everybody else. So I think this was actually a really big shiny spot of this. The online meetings, and I want to emphasize that this came from everyone. So it was teachers saying that IET time was, was better because they were able to do IETs this way. Parent meetings, parents loved being able to do the online meetings, 504s and PPTs. I would say even with Board of Ed meetings where you have participants able to engage from the community in such a more wider way than when we were in person has been popular. So all of those thoughts were related and important. The other thing that the tool does is it kind of looks at differences. So something like the Wednesdays, which I mentioned before, there were two sides to it, right? So there was the remote short Wednesdays didn't work. It was a wasted day. So you saw that. And you have the other side where remote Wednesdays have been wonderful and our family really enjoyed them. So you did get both sides in this as well. Remote learning, as I said, some of the things that they really liked about remote learning was the remote snow days. And that came up a lot. And then, again, remote days and, remote learning through snow days. And some other things that came up that were just a little bit like unexpected. There was more time outside for students and they liked the outside classes. So that was another thing that came up. So this is really just a compilation. There is a very robust reporting discovery dashboard with thoughts that I share with all of the building administrators that then they can take a look at it and, look to see how they can change things to improve. We used this in the beginning of the year as well, and it really did inform our practices as well throughout the year. So with that, I think we're going to invite our students.
Terrific. And so Dr. O'Donnell, why don't you introduce our student panel here?
Yeah, I'm truly honored to introduce this group of students, and we've got a nice cross section. First of all, these are all members of our executive board, so they're leaders in the school, and some of them are aspiring to leadership offices again next year. So we have one sophomore, we have Sean Thomas. We're fortunate to have 4 juniors. We have Harrison Forland, Joe Eustace, who you will know, Ria Ranawala, and Kathy Campbell. And we are honored to have one of our seniors here, Thomas Petrillo, volunteered right away. And Thomas, it's great to have you here, and congratulations to you in the class of 2021 coming up. So these students are looking forward to sharing their views, and we told them to, be candid and forthright. And students, thank you so much for being here.
Great, thanks, Dr. O'Donnell. And so we'll just turn it over to you. The first question I think our board and the rest of us are interested in hearing is, what worked well for all of you this year?
I guess I can start. I found that I had a lot of time, especially on Wednesdays, to really form fit my schedule to what I needed to do. And I thought that my teachers were really flexible, just in letting me know what I needed to do by a certain period. And then for the most part, I think sometimes I had trouble in certain classes. But for the most part, my teachers were really good about letting me know early so that I could plan out my week.
Thanks, Thomas. Others?
Yeah, I would definitely agree. This year's been very difficult in a lot of our classes, and teachers have been very flexible, and they've listened a lot. They've taken into account a lot of the issues we've had. And I think they've done a really good job at, listening to us and trying to help us in pretty much any way they can. And it's been like a pretty smooth for considering the circumstances.
Yeah, I did really appreciate the flexibility, because not only did it take a lot of the stress off, especially just because everything has been so weird this year and there have been like so many unexpected circumstances. It just made it a lot easier to just be able to focus like directly on the learning and nothing else, and not worry about things like due dates or whatever, just because I knew I could always have an open line of communication with my teachers and that they would always understand, just because of what the situation was this year. And I thought it just really helped me focus on like learning itself and fully understanding the material more so than I have in past years.
I also personally found that the scheduling this year, I mean, obviously there were a lot of changes, but overall it went very smoothly. And with the 4 cohorts, we've received schedules, like we all kind of know what's going on. And in this year where with everything else we haven't, I think the scheduling and the change in cohorts has been really well outlined.
And to add on to that, I think the way the Wednesday scheduling specifically has worked out, having that designated time at the end of the day for teachers and students to come together, have club meetings, have time to make up tests, worked out really well this year, especially considering the circumstances, because it really just gave us a time where it wouldn't be chaotic meeting with a teacher, because there's always going to be a time to talk with them or make up any work.
To shift the conversation more away from the Wednesdays, but I really, really love the remote half days on snow days. Like I like having a snow day and everybody does, but I want to get out early and on time.
Great, thanks, Joe. Anything else that worked well for you all?
Yeah, one more thing. I thought the way school safety ended up working out just was great. Like it didn't feel overbearing. I'm gonna be honest, nobody really loves the sneeze guards, but it was doable. And I think I generally saw, students following the rules, having their mask all the way up. And, again, having the desks spaced out. It's not as fun, but I think that, it worked out in the end. And, going to the cafeteria or being in class, like we were still able to have like a dynamic and like exciting environment, even though we were spaced out and still safe.
Yeah, just to add on, another thing I really, really love, and it was in the thought exchange, is sitting outside and getting to have some fresh air during the day at lunch and that sort of thing. Just getting to walk around, it really, really helps.
Any other thoughts on the things that worked well for all of you?
I think just recently there were new benches installed. So like the whole year I've been eating lunch outside with my friends, and I think that was just a great idea. So that's going to be cool.
I second that. I absolutely love the new benches. It's like not nearly as cramped or crammed, and it's very nice.
It's great. So these are I love the comments, because these are the kinds of things that we're listening for, that we want to hang on to as we're thinking about next year. So let's take the opposite tack here. How about things that really you struggled with or didn't work well?
I can start with this. I think the glaring issue with this year was our transition to Schoology. I actually kind of like Schoology for what it is. I know some people find it complicated, but I like it a lot. The only issue I've been finding, or the main issue I think that we as like a school can actually change, is this is something we talked a lot in executive board, but having like a uniform, like the way teachers format their school, like their pages for each class. I think having it uniform so that like they're easy to understand and it's not just a bunch of numbers, but it's also uniform for each class is fairly important. I know most teachers, like they have it numbered like 3.4.1 for each class, and that got kind of confusing at times. But I've found it helpful to go through like either it be a unit as a folder and then it goes through each class, or something along the lines of that. But I think uniformity, but also making it more simple as something I think we could do better.
Yeah, definitely more intuitive with like labeling things, and also like customizing, like putting up like a special image for a class instead of just the same picture over and over again. That helps you, immediately figure out, oh, this is, bio versus math.
Yeah, to add on to what Kathy and Harrison said, I like Schoology because we can organize everything by folder, and it's just like a hard drive on a computer. Some people, I could understand why that makes it more complicated for them, but I think in the long term, it's easier to find an assignment from Q1 when you need to study for a test in Q4. But I agree with what Harrison said and what Kathy said, that it needs to be a uniform system that includes a description of what this assignment is about instead of just 4.3.1.
Great. Other things that you struggled with or found problematic as we came through the year?
Well, shifting a little bit away from Schoology, I think this hopefully won't be something that recurs next year since we have vaccines and everything. But the testing specifically for standardized testing, in my opinion, was somewhat problematic, mainly because the rooms were pretty cramped. And on top of that, the desk space was very small. And that really made it a lot harder for what I've heard from the student body, that it made it a lot harder to concentrate on the test itself, which may have affected performance.
And Sean, desk space was small, at least in part because of the presence of the sneeze guards?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that was also something I was going to bring up. I think Kathy also mentioned this earlier, but I think the sneeze guards, just in terms of like the transition to the 75% system, the sneeze guards have been like the one thing that I haven't liked. I understand there's obviously like very strong COVID reasoning behind them, but I will say they have like impeded my learning, that it gets really hard to see the whiteboard, especially when there's like already glare from the smart board. You can't really see anything, especially if you're in the back of the classroom. All you can really see is just like a sea of plastic sneeze guards and nothing else. So it does get a little frustrating at times, and it does feel a little bit impersonal as well. Just kind of feels like you're stuck in like a cubicle for all your classes and not actually like open to anybody else. So yeah, those are my thoughts. I know that I do know they are like supposed to prevent, like any kind of outward like fluid, like sneezing or anything like that. But I also think a lot of the time students like sit back in their seats more than they actually do like sit within the range of the sneeze guard. So it doesn't end up being as useful as it's like intended to be.
Yeah, that's a really good point, because I definitely know everyone's, like I'm sticking my head around the sneeze guard, like trying to get a look at the board, because otherwise I just can't see it. But one positive thing about the sneeze guards is that most of my teachers have recognized that when, the class is half empty, we can close all the other sneeze guards and put this down. So that's like a really easy way where if we have to keep, having sneeze guards up, it's really easy to sort of minimize how annoying they are by just putting down the ones where, there's no one sitting at that desk.
No, I
also
just want.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, you can go ahead if you want, Thomas. All right.
It's real quick. So some of the desks are bigger than others. So I noticed that in some classes I have more room, and then other classes I've been like really struggling.
Yeah, to add on to the sneeze guards part, I don't have the data and all the science that you guys have access to, but I would just say if it's even possible to require double masks and get rid of the sneeze guards, I would really love that. And I think a lot of the students would love that, because looking through 4 or 5 sneeze guards to see the board, it really hinders your education.
I think moving away from sneeze guards, one other issue I found this year is finding a place to go to during our freeze. We have the like cafeteria, we have the atrium, and the library. But the issue with like the library is you have to be silent, because there's also it's loud because there's a class in there, but we also have to be silent and there's not a lot of talking going on. The cafeteria, it's not the worst place. I mean, you can sit with like a fair amount of your friends. The best place I found so far is going outside at some of the empty lunch tables. You can talk to a lot of your friends and it's not too noisy. But I feel like having more places maybe where students can hang out during their freeze, or like a place to do their homework, but also being able to like openly talk with their friends would be nice as well.
Great, thanks, Harrison. Anything else on this? And then if not, I'll ask you about silver linings. And by that, we heard a few of those already, things that kind of emerged this year. So, more benches and time outside. What else emerged that you really want to hang on to? And I think I heard Joe say he really liked the remote snow days. So are there things along those lines that, we want to retain and plan for as we're thinking about 21-22?
I would say primarily just being able to go outside. I know in the past we've kind of been locked indoors. We haven't been able to go under the bridge if we want to cross. I think being able to eat outside or maybe walk around just for a few minutes to have a breath has been very, very useful this year. And I'd like to see that like in the future.
I definitely think that the option to be remote on a day where, like I personally get headaches or like, if I'm just not feeling great, I can stay home and still be on the Zoom and still feel like, I don't have so much to suddenly catch up on. Even if I can't physically be in person, like just having that option is like amazing because it just takes off stress from like the rest of the week. And then I don't have to go in and like talk to my teachers and take up their time and take up my time. And I don't fall behind. So I definitely think that the option to go remote, I understand that some students have been misusing it, but like genuinely when you're not feeling great and you can't go in person, like, that has been so helpful.
I second that. I think that's a great idea because I personally, like a couple weeks ago, I rolled my ankle. And then when I was going back into school and I had to like walk all around the school and I have a really heavy backpack, it just got worse. So then I stayed home for a while and did just remote and I recovered super quickly. So I think that's a great idea.
I think another one thing that's somewhat nice about, the situation is that it introduced us to Zoom in general, which made it a lot more efficient for transition times for mainly club meetings and other meetings. Like I know executive board last year, I would say waste at least probably 15 minutes transitioning into and out of exec board versus now we just get in, we get everything done. I think we've been able to cut down the time that we take by like 15 minutes.
To say one thing, and I think I'm a little biased in this area, but I think that the live streaming of all the games has been really, really good. I'm very proud to say that we filmed every varsity game this year. And I think that the feedback from parents has been great. They've said like, oh, my grandparent, not their grandparent, but their parents on the other side of the country can watch their kid play. And I'm going to continue that next year. And I think it's a great addition that we've seen from this year.
Great. Anything else top of mind for silver linings?
One other thing that I guess is just kind of like more of a product of circumstance. I think just because of the fact that everything's been so scattered this year with like kids on Zoom and kids in person, teachers have been a lot more organized and like making sure information gets distributed to everybody online and that it's in like a permanent place. So now most of the time it's not like, you get your homework in the last 2 minutes of class and you get graded on that, but like it's in a place on Schoology that you can check very clearly. And it's a lot easier to like know what I have to get done. There's like no weird stray assignments that I might have to do and might not. Like everything is very clear cut. And I really do appreciate that.
Great feedback.
To be honest, I'm gonna have to disagree with that, at least in my circumstances. This isn't really silver lining, of course, but I have had issues where I wasn't clear what assignments were supposed to be graded, what assignments were classwork, what were homework. But that's just my experience, so I was going to contest that.
Well, I did see a lot of other people saying that sometimes there were issues of not knowing what assignments are graded and which aren't, so labeling is really important.
Yeah, that was also. Oh, go ahead. No worries.
But like to back up Rhea, like everything is there. Sometimes it's a little bit unclear, if it's classwork versus homework versus ungraded versus graded, but it's definitely there.
Yeah, I think one thing that really helped that my Spanish teacher did is that she labeled every assignment, like before the assignment name, she would like strictly label this is classwork and this is homework. And then she would also like post the day's work in the update section so that everything was super accessible and you knew like exactly what the plan for the day was, which was like, okay, I'm going to go to this assignment on Schoology and then I'll complete this and fill out this and do this for homework. And it was also really easy if you missed a day because you had like the entire lesson plan right there. So you knew exactly what to do.
That's great. Thank you. Debbie, maybe board members may have other additional questions.
Yeah, absolutely. Good idea. So I'll open it up to the board members. Just first with a thank you for all your thoughtful comments so far. And I have some questions, but others may want to go first. So go ahead. Okay, so I'm going to ask mine, which is one thing that as teachers and parents and board members worry about a little bit is, well, did you learn as much as you could have or you should have? And so are you worried about next year, or are you feeling like, you know what, we're all in this together, teachers are going to be able to pick us up from wherever we enter? Are you feeling any stress about that or any worry about that?
To be honest, yes, 100%. I'm definitely feeling stressed about next year because as far as I can tell, Wednesdays will go back to being full days, clubs will go back to being in person. So like Sean was talking about, the transition time it takes, physically getting to a club, transitioning into the club, everything I think is going to take longer. But I don't know off the top of my head right now. I'll be thinking about it for the rest of the meeting. I don't know what like big changes we can make to sort of alleviate that, but definitely it's on my mind for next year.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I would agree, especially regarding classes. I feel like, especially for AP classes, because there's like this set like deadline, like in May, pretty much right now, to have your AP test. There's like this big rush to try and do as much as we can because we had so limited time. And because of that, I feel like we were a little bit behind from normally, but because of that, I feel like we maybe didn't do as much work. And I don't know how much this affected my non-AP classes. Like for math example, I think if next year going into like the next level of math, fairly confident, like we learned enough that I'll still be able to pick up from where I like was and do fine. But I don't know how much the work ethic that we would build up from this year from doing our AP classes and other things. I think that wasn't as like prevalent because our teachers were so like thoughtful, essentially, because they like were easy on us at sometimes. I think next year, if we have full expectations, it might be a little hard to transition back into. And that's my fear for next year, is transitioning is going to be a lot harder if it's a full year with full expectations.
Yeah, and not just expectations, but like the literal curriculums were like in science, for example, like labs were cut out, so we would have more time to like learn the content. So not just expectations, but also that.
I agree with you too, but I disagree a little bit. I think it depends on the subject area. For example, in my chemistry class with Mrs. Rinaldi, we covered everything that we needed for the AP test before April break, and we were able to review after that. But for something like Spanish, we were still trying to like pull through at the end, and we were learning new material a week before the test. And that's just because like in Spanish, you need to be able to talk to people. In all world languages, you need to be able to talk to people in that language to really understand it. And we weren't able to do that as much this year because we were all spaced out and because some were in Zoom, some were not. So I think it depends on the subject area.
Yeah, and yeah, I agree with Joe. I think when it comes to curriculum, it mainly just depends on the teacher. But the one thing I've heard from pretty much everybody, and the one thing I agree on, is the main worry is that we're just going to be losing all of the leeway that we were given this year, and it's going to be a bit of a rough transition. So it would be nice if there is a way next year that we could sort of like ease back into the swing of things rather than just hitting the ground running.
I think some of my teachers, so at least one of my teachers, has told our class at least that that group of teachers at science, they're aware that we haven't covered all the topics that we normally would have covered this year. So going into next year, they'll be making sure that the curriculum is accommodated to fit in any of the missed material. So I think that's a silver lining.
Great.
Would it
I just had to mention something. Oh, sorry.
No, just a quick question. If it would help if there were extra after school sessions that you guys could use with your teachers to kind of catch up or feel like you're at a better ground, or is that something that would help?
I think it would help. Oh, I think it would help, but I feel like most students wouldn't utilize it as much as we would want them to. Just because I think a lot of people would feel like it's just chipping away from their free time. But I think for the students who truly do feel like they need help, I think that would be a very good resource, and that could be very helpful.
I think if it's something built into the schedule, kind of like how the Wednesdays had the built-in schedule to talk to the teachers, that would definitely be time that's more utilized than something after school that might go into extracurricular time.
I'm just a little curious if you guys can maybe talk on this a little bit or think about it and, you know, let us know. Because you're talking a little bit about like leeway and rigor, but at the same time, you also talked about how you felt like you were able to really kind of concentrate on the content and the learning and felt a little bit less pressure. And you felt like you were perhaps absorbing or, you know, learning more. So I'm wondering just a little bit if you feel like there's something about the way Schoology or the design of the design and the pace of, you know, being partially remote lended to like a different communication style or a different kind of platform between you and your teachers that kind of felt like leeway, but maybe so much, you know, wasn't. Do you feel like there's some like practices that could be used going forward that may, you know, help promote that sense of flexibility that in some way, to some extent, is like translating to feeling like you're having less on you, but you're actually still performing at a high, you know, the same rate that you were. I don't know if that makes sense to you.
Yeah, I think absolutely. One thing that I just talked to someone about today, one thing that I thought was so useful about the end of my junior year was that my math teacher started teaching the class in a recording, and then we would just watch it back and do problems. And that way there was no way that anyone could like fail the class because they could just rewatch and learn every single thing that they needed to learn. And so that's something that my friend Rowan Cremeri, one of his teachers in science, is doing that this year. He has a YouTube channel and for every class and every unit. And I think that is so useful because then you have an extra help period whenever you want. And all you have to do is record the teaching session.
Yeah, and I think part of that is what Ria was talking about earlier, where, you know, like everything is on Schoology. So if you're looking for something, and I think Joe mentioned this also, if you're looking for something, you just remember, oh, it's like unit 3, it's somewhere in here. And, you know, if it's properly labeled, it's really easy to find whatever you're looking for. I also think a big part of the flexibility varied teacher to teacher. It was literally just communication with the teacher and being honest with, you know, whatever you have going on, and maybe you need an extension, maybe you need whatever. And, you know, very much circumstantial and communicating with the teachers. And I found that, you know, I've never had an issue with the teacher not being flexible, but especially this year, you know, teachers would sometimes be the first ones to check in and say like, oh, you guys seem like really quiet today, or like, oh, there's something going on with this assignment, like everyone seems to be struggling with it. And I definitely think that's something that can carry over into next year, obviously within reason. And yeah, and I like that everything is posted online because it has to be for the remote kids. So it's so easy to find.
Any other board questions or comments?
Yeah, I have a couple of things, Deb.
Yeah.
I'm glad to hear, you know, for the most part, that Schoology, you know, that you all supported and that you enjoyed it, and you seem to think it make it work. And Fran and her group, I mean, we did that quickly. I mean, we really unloaded Schoology and adopted it in a very rapid manner. And I think as time goes on, we're all going to get a lot better at it. And we're going to learn more. And your comments about Schoology, I know Fran has made notes, and you will work with the teachers to try and get everything uniform. The thing that intrigues me, and I'm wondering if, I always thought that, our structure bears looking at. And listening to your comments about Wednesdays, if we were to, not that we can, I don't know how complicated it would be, to adopt a schedule going into next year, that every other Wednesday would be a remote half-day Wednesday. Would that make sense? I mean, we can't do it every Wednesday. Let's say every other Wednesday would be a remote half-day Wednesday. Does that have an appeal, or would there be value in trying to do that? I'm curious.
I think it would serve as a free period for students. Oh, sorry.
Yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry. So I'm curious about how you would feel if it could be done. And it would be very complicated to do. But if it were doable, would it make sense to have an every other Wednesday, as we did this year, half-day remote?
Personally, I found that I love the Wednesdays, and I almost never had to meet with teachers. So I just found it as a day where I didn't have to jump around, and I could just sit down and have a block of time to do homework. So I think that it's especially because I didn't have many frees or any frees starting in the second half of the year. And I know that a lot of kids pack their schedules with tons of APs. So I think you need that time to catch up. This year, I've had 4 of my friends or more have been talking to me about how they have so much late work that they've been struggling to catch up on.
I think a really important part about mental health in general is always having something to look forward to. And a lot of people, especially in COVID, have not had anything to look forward to because social events have been canceled. You can't hang out with friends, especially people who've been at home remote, haven't had a lot to look forward to these days. And having something like a Wednesday, even if it's just every other week, is definitely something in the week you can go into and say oh, it's a rough week, but at least I know that Wednesday I can cut back a little bit and take that time for myself and get done what I need to get done.
Yeah, definitely. I was even talking to a teacher who said that Tuesday night to him feels a little bit like almost a Friday night, which I found really funny. But also speaking practically, of course, because it would be great if every day felt like a Friday night. It's definitely awesome for, doing work, like Thomas said, having an extra free or squeezing in club time. There's just so many extra things you can do. And it's so easy to let's say Tuesday night, I have something I really need to focus on. I can fully focus on it because I know Wednesday I'm going to have a little extra time to do the other assignments. So yeah, I think based on the survey, based on what we're saying at the exec board, based on what all of my friends are saying, that would be something which, has a lot of support from the students.
I agree with that mostly, but I think if we normalized having it as a half day, even if it's every other week, it would become insignificant. Because what I noticed this year is that the snow days don't mean anything if you have a half day, and I like that. But I think if we made it a half day every week, we're just going to fill our schedules again. I know that toward the end of the year, I was noticing that I have class government, then I have exec board, then I could have a meeting with a teacher or something like that. If we make it regular, I think it would lose significance. But I'm not opposed to, say, having a mental health day or something like that where we make it a half day, but just not on a regular basis.
Okay.
I mean, I think, sorry, just to Joe's point, I think I would have to disagree just seeing how people are still so in favor of the Wednesdays. I know for me personally, even though I have had, I have realized that I have packed in a few more meetings into my Wednesdays just because I have more time. It's just so nice to be able to get all those done by 5 p.m. rather than have them get done by 10 on a regular day. And it's just so nice to have just the extra time to, not only catch up on homework, but also just to relax and just to take a step back and take care of ourselves.
I think the freedom is important in preparing for college too, because it really gives you the opportunity to format your schedule more so than normal.
And bouncing off of Joe and Ria, exactly. And that's when I did pack in my meetings. So this way I wouldn't have it starting at 3, on a Thursday or something like that. I would have my meetings, get them done, and still have time for work instead of exactly like Rhea said, finishing up at 10, which is not ideal, obviously. Yeah, no, I definitely am in support of them. And I think at this point in the year, they've been just as useful as they were at the start of the year.
All right, well, thank you for that. Thank you.
I don't have any additional questions. I just wanted to say thank you for being here. And I hope in a non-COVID year, you guys would also come back and talk to us and give us some feedback, because it's definitely beneficial to us, especially if we only have kids in certain schools and whatnot. We kind of miss out on other things that are going on. So thank you.
Right. Yeah, it's been a tremendous addition to have you at the meeting and to sort of literally give voice to the experiences that we have been, hearing so much about described by others. So thank you so much for coming and sharing your thoughts and just giving us obviously some good questions and issues to think about moving forward. So you've been great. And so let's keep in touch. Most of you will be returning. And to our graduate, congratulations and good luck. So thank you so much. And you don't have to stay for the meeting. You can go and do something, sort of more personal and more productive for you. So thank you so much. Good night.
Thank you.
Just before just before you go.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, go ahead.
Hold on one second. So listen, you guys have given all of us some tremendous feedback, and I just want to take 30 seconds and give you some feedback. First, you represent yourselves, your families, and your classmates exceptionally well. Here at Wilton, we pride ourselves on the strength of our curriculum and the work that we do with you in developing written and oral communication skills. And your oral communication skills are exemplary. Your ability to express clear, cogent, powerful thoughts, bar none. Your ability to not only build on, but challenge each other's ideas, also exemplary. And the comfort and clarity with which you spoke to a bunch of adults, most of whom are probably strangers for you, didn't stand in the way of your expressive, clear communication. So bravo to all of you. Bravo to your families. Keep up the great work.
Thank you, all of you. Thank you, guys.
Thanks again. Okay. So that would make a good end to the meeting, but I know we have some more stuff.
All right, I'm for that.
No, I'm just kidding. So anyway, thank you, Bob, and for inviting those students, and they were tremendous. So thanks, and a lot to think about. So, okay, so we do need to finish our agenda tonight, though. So let's launch into summer learning plans.
Great. So I'll take you briefly through, two programs we're intending on offering. One is an extension of the intervention program we're currently running. So this will be intended for students in grades K through 11 who are currently receiving intervention services. We would propose to continue running those programs in language arts and mathematics. What we're looking at is running 2 sessions. The first session will run June 21st through July 1st, and then the second session will run July 12th through July 22nd, and students would be able to participate in either one or both sessions. They'll be working with our current interventionists. We do have a question about staffing if we get the demand that exceeds what we're currently expecting. So we may need to hire additional staff to run it. But right now, we've got some of our own interventionists who have designed the programs and are interested in staffing them. And the benefit there is they're already working with these students so they could pick up from where they leave off on the last day of school and just carry that forward. What we're estimating is 45-minute sessions that'll take place Monday through Thursday through each of those weeks for that 2 to 4 week range. So that'll be anywhere from 8 to 16 classes. Ballpark, looking at kind of current estimates right now, we're imagining it'll cost probably just over about $30,000 to run that program, K11. And then we also have a high school program separate from the intervention program that Don Shells is going to describe for us.
Thanks, Kevin. The prime mover in our program is not to create a traditional credit recovery summer school, but rather to identify skills that students need to accelerate forward in the next year. And where those skills are lagging, help students have another chance over the summer to practice and master them. So our program would focus on ELA and math as the main content areas or skill areas. And we have a sort of a triage system to help be efficient and identify the kids who need the service the most and who would benefit from it the most. So we had a committee work to come up with the ideas we want to propose. And then we invited instructional leaders and teachers to create important standards, skill-based standards that drive each discipline in ELA and math. We call them power standards. And then each teacher looked at those standards and considered them relative to their current roster of students and recommended a list of students they think might benefit having more opportunities to engage with these skills. We're going to make the program known to those families and solicit interest as to who might want to enroll. And we're at that point right now. We have 218 students identified who might benefit from this program, and we're going to invite them all and see what kind of response we get. The way the program would work is then teachers would work with students to enhance those skills, and students would be able to show what they learned and skills they developed in a performance-based assessment. The logistics of the program are similar to other summer experiences. We envision a 5-week sequence, 4 days a week, roughly 3.5 hours a day, but an hour and a half of that could be for STEM and an hour and a half for ELA, depending upon what students need. Running from late June through late July. We think this is a way to make sure that students who want to get ahead and any skills that might be lagging from COVID or the other irregularities of the year, they can recover those skills, recoup them, and then have a better chance to hit the ground running in the fall.
And Don, cost estimate for that program was also
well. I'll be able to get you a projected cost estimate very soon based upon how many students indicate interest. But if we use the figure of 50 students, and it could be a lot less or a few more than that, but historically, around 25% is sort of the ceiling when we've done this kind of thing. If we served 50 students in this way, the projected cost would be around $29,000.
Can I ask a question? Just because families who don't take up on the offer for other summer plans or other reasons, is there perhaps a way that these power standards that are being developed could be made accessible?
Sure, it's a document that can certainly be shared, and also teachers in general are aware of them. And the summer sequence is not the only place that students can engage with these skills. I mean, I think when students come back to school in the fall, all teachers are going to be aware of their responsibility to take these kids where they find them and help them with skills at that time too. So they're not mysterious, and we can certainly share. I can in fact share it with the superintendent tonight, and he can share it out as he sees fit.
Great.
Are you guys going to allow students to be remote? Or do you have to be in person?
It's still under consideration. We're right now proposing live instruction because we think that's a better way to engage kids who have been distant from school. But I can't say that in certain cases, if a student had a certain circumstance, that we would never make the service available remotely. It's conceived of as a mostly live program right now, though.
Okay.
Any other questions or? Well, I'm glad to see so much intervention and support. For the high school piece, you talk about sort of doing it in the STEM cluster and the humanities cluster, am I right? And so offering a general credit?
Yes, this would not specifically replace the exact credit for any required course and in any graduation requirement, or for a course that a student didn't pass. It would just, but to incentivize participation, if you did the sequence in ELA, you would get 0.5 credits towards the 25 that you need to graduate. And same with the STEM part. So a student could earn 1 credit towards the 25 that they need to graduate at Wilton High School. But if they didn't master Algebra 2, let's say, this summer program would not mean that they did not have to re-engage with Algebra 2 the next year, or that they would recoup credit in that Algebra 2 class. They would just be engaging with math standards to help them move forward next year. Now, of course, there are summer schools that exist in our DIRG for students who do want that traditional credit recovery experience. And the latest advice we had is that they were accepting outside students. So that's also a possibility that we make students aware of, and we counsel them in that direction if they want it.
So, a quick question. What you're describing is for the summer, but I think, and Ruth also asked this, but is there something that the people who are not around for the summer can at least do something either after school, before school, some sort of support that would be given into the fall of next year?
Well, there are technologies and platforms and services that give students things that they can engage with and drill skills. And we have researched some of those too, and might make some of those available. It's not clear that every student could self-teach these things, but many might be able to. And again, there are companies that provide resources for students who want to phone up on certain things. So that's sort of in the proposal. One of the parts of the proposal is collateral resources that students might draw on, like the one you're describing, and that definitely is under consideration. I think that would be in addition to what we're offering, not instead of.
Okay.
Yeah, and Gretchen, just in general, as we're thinking about unfinished learning and how we respond to students' needs, there's very clearly we run an intervention component through this spring. We'll have a summer component, and we'll certainly have a supplemental instructional component for those students we identify in the fall.
Okay, great, thank you.
Okay. Yeah, I feel better knowing that it's also the intervention piece would also be offered in the fall. I think for next year will be critical. In terms of funding, is this something that the ESSER grant could go towards?
Correct. So, in fact, at the next board meeting, I'll bring forward a proposal with some tighter funding estimates on this program and look for board approval. But the ARP funds that will be flowing from the federal government, we're designating those funds that we'll receive to cover the cost of this program, as well as the additional learning programs that will run in the fall.
Okay. All right. So you don't need us any action or anything like that tonight, am I right?
Correct, not tonight.
Okay. All right. So any other questions or comments or suggestions before we move on? All right. Well, thanks for keeping us updated on this, and sounds solid. I'm a little curious as to how many takers there'll be at the high school. So if you could sort of let us know before the end of the year what it's looking like in terms of just, what the enrollment's going to be.
Will do.
All right. And I like the fact that around the intervention that it's not overly scheduled, so that kids don't feel like I just finished a school year. Now my summer is going to be all filled with school. So there's definitely, you seem to be sensitive towards the hours and the timing of it. So thank you.
Well, thank you. I appreciate the board's consideration.
Okay. Okay. Next up are the policies. And Kevin, is it the gifts is first, it looks like?
Correct. So this is policy 3280. It's the gifts, grants, and bequests policy, which we're renaming or proposing to rename, I should say, gifts, grants, bequests, and fundraising. And so this is a policy we've been working on for some time. Back in the fall, we put it in front of our counsel, our legal counsel, and receive some feedback. And so the red line changes you see are really the changes proposed to address particularly the fundraising. And so I think, just first as a threshold statement, we know that our schools and our students and teachers for sure have benefited from the generosity of so many in this community and beyond this community in terms of supporting not only our educational programs, but our extracurricular activities. We have our groups of PTAs who work all year long in fundraising to support, wonderful activities in our schools. We're, recipients of the generosity of the Wilton Education Foundation and so many others, and as well our booster clubs. And so the thrust of the changes here really speak to just implementing some tighter controls around oversight, really through fundraising. And, this policy change will not impact most practices except on our side, ensuring that gifts and grants that we receive as they come into the district flow through the business office. They're accounted for appropriately in the student activity accounts. And then, with particular attention to fundraising done by some of our athletic booster clubs, by ensuring those processes will be able to better ensure our Title IX compliance. And so that's going to be a real benefit of this policy change.
Okay, any questions or comments from the policy committee? Anything else we should know?
No.
Okay, so this will come back to us for approval next time then?
It will.
Okay, all right. So if anybody does think of questions, between now and then, of course, just send them forward. The next policy is equal opportunity in school programs and practices.
Great. And so we're bringing this policy forward this evening. This is another policy that emerged just as part of our regular review of policies. It's been quite a number of years since it was last reviewed. And so we made some very minor changes to the language in the policy, just updating it so it is consistent with some of our other non-discrimination policies. And then with respect to the regulation, we're proposing to supplant the existing regulation with our Title IX non-discrimination policy regulation, because that regulation articulates a grievance and investigation procedure. And there's absolutely no reason to have two separate procedures. They should be the same thing.
Any questions, comments?
No, it makes sense to do that.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Okay, so we'll see that on the next meeting as well then.
Yes.
All right, thanks. Okay, so now we're on to action items. The first one is the process by which to fill our upcoming Board of Education vacancy. We received a letter from you, Gretchen, today stating that you will resign from the Board of Ed effective June 15th. And that is in order to accomplish a move for you and your family. So we will certainly miss you on this board. We'll have another opportunity to say goodbye, but we will miss you, and we certainly understand and wish you and your family well.
Yes, I'm sad to be leaving, but relocation for our family is,
of course,
priority.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so tonight we're just going to sort of look at just the process. You got a memo from me describing a recommendation for a process. So I'm wondering if somebody could make a motion to authorize me to bring forward a nomination for the June 17th meeting for a candidate that has had recent Board of Education experience and is willing to assist with this short-term vacancy and has the energy to do so and will not be seeking election in the 2021 Board of Ed. Is there a motion to that effect? Thanks, Glenn. I think I saw your hand, so I'm hoping that means that. Okay. Is there a second?
Second.
All right. Thanks, Ruth. All in favor? Any opposed? All right. And Gretchen, I think you've abstained. Thanks. All right. All right. Thank you. Next one, happy news, theater donation.
Yes, we're very excited this evening to request approval for a substantial donation in support of our spring musical. The Theater Arts Association Booster Club has raised $25,000 to give to the Wilton High School Theater Department as a gift to produce the 2021 Outdoor Spring Musical. The gift is a combination of fundraising through Fairfield County Giving Day, the Give Butter nonprofit fundraising platform, and an anonymous matching gift of $10,000. The 2021 Spring Musical will be held on the north field of the high school campus, as I mentioned earlier, beginning May 19th. And the funds from this gift will go directly to the expenses to produce that performance. So it's a gift of $25,000, and we're asking the board for a motion to accept that gift.
So moved.
Yeah. We also have to say just how appreciative and how amazing that is. So thank you to all involved and all contributors. Very, very much appreciated. Okay, so Ruth, you moved it. Is there a second?
Second.
Gretchen, all right. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carried gratefully. Thank you.
Thank you, and thanks to all those folks who donated, and we're looking forward to it.
Amazing. Yeah, that's really awesome. All right, the next two, discuss and approve. This is the teacher evaluation plan. For anyone wondering what's that about, who's listening, this is an annual duty of the Board of Education to approve the teacher evaluation plan. Sometimes there are changes, but this year, Kevin, do you want, or Maria, do you want to explain it?
Yeah, there are no changes. This is the plan that was submitted and approved in June 2019. And then as you are aware, we didn't have to do evaluations in 2020 because of the pandemic. And then the state approved a revised evaluation plan for this year. So we're a sign of returning to more normal operations.
Okay. Is there a motion to approve the teacher evaluation plan?
So moved.
Thanks, Glenn. Second, Gretchen, I'll take yours. All in favor?
Aye.
All right. We're all voting for a return to more normal, so I'll gladly do that. And the administrator evaluation plan. Kevin, you want to explain that? Is that along the same lines?
Exactly. So it's the plan that was approved back in 2019. There have been no changes, and so we're looking for the board to approve it as it's written.
Okay. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Thanks, Glenn. A second?
Second.
Thanks, Ruth. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? All right, that is also approved. That brings us to future business. There's a calendar of future meetings. And I just want to highlight the town vote again on Saturday. That brings us to comments from the public. Lucille, did we receive any?
I'm doing one final check. No, we have not.
All right, thank you. All right, we have completed our agenda. So I'm going to adjourn the meeting at whatever time this is. 8:17. All right, so thank you, everyone. Good work. And again, please convey our thanks to the student participants as well. So good night. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Good night.
Good night.